Hello and welcome to Transcending Ascension's production of The Physics of Consciousness by Ivan Antic. This is part 6 of our audiobook read-through. Inner senses and extrasensory perception. Perception as we know it in our physical body did not originate in nature first, nor is it the highest dimension there is. Before sensory and rational perception developed in our body, their prototypes originated in the higher dimensions of nature. In Samkhya, they are called Tanmatra. They are subtle fields that act as patterns according to which all the processes in nature will be formed. In modern science, they have been discovered as the morphogenic fields, subtle fields in accordance with which everything is formed in nature. Since the natural processes themselves, the atoms, molecules, and DNA, have no set patterns and plans on how to shape cells into specific organs and forms. Beings get shaped according to some invisible field of influence. There is a biofeedback effect also when an already created form or pattern creates a morphogenic field, which in turn further multiplies forms and behavior patterns. The biologist Rupert Sheldrake called these processes the morphic resonance. However, their impact is far more complex than what science would have us believe. The way it is nowadays, at least, a long time ago, the same was discovered by the science of Samkhya, that the most subtle fields in nature, Tanmatra, serve not only to form everything in existence, but also as prototypes for our sensory organs, for our perception. They are the inner senses that connect us to the higher dimensions of nature, to objective nature. If we had physical senses only, we would be able to perceive the physical world only. Yet our perception exceeds the material world by far. We have these same senses in the world of dreams, in the non-physical world, in the astral, where we can see, touch, hear, and taste the same way we do in the physical world, and even more distinctly. Subsection 19. On the inner senses, but many other truths of the objective reality as well, the best works to learn from are the materials by Jane Roberts. The Seth material. Seth speaks, eternal validity of the soul, the nature of personal reality, the nature of the psyche, in human expression, and the adventures in consciousness. Much evidence exists claiming that consciousness is independent of the physical body, and many people have experienced this personally. Different frequencies of ether naturally create different fields of influence. That is all. The abstract world of ideas originates from the ether and further creates everything in existence. Ether, or akasha, is the most subtle area of nature. Ether is a quantum field or matrix that generates all other forms of existence, all the elements, and the whole of nature. Through the elements or dimensions, a progressive complexity of frequencies from the source takes place, from the source of the divine absolute, and spreads out in space according to the golden ratio formula. Earth is the final product of all the higher dimensions and influences. Hence, it manifests all the realities of existence. That explains why physical reality has the highest ontological or cognitive value. This is the real reason souls incarnate into physical reality. Creation finds its ultimate reach on this plane, and all the dimensions of existence are actualized here. Human souls, with their embodiment, execute this actualization. Consciousness and physics of quantum field, ether. Consciousness and the physics of ether are one and the same thing. It is only our mind that discriminates between the two and splits them into outward and inward. The physics of ether looks like the foundation for the manifestation of the outward universe as the image in our mind, with all the subatomic particles, elements, and physical laws, stars, and galaxies, whereas consciousness is something that is only within us. We will see in the second part of this book that consciousness manifests itself as inorganic shapes, but all organic, mineral, plant, and animal life as well, and all of that to a much higher degree than our mind only. It is the same consciousness, it only manifests differently inside and outside of us. Only owing to the function of our mind can we perceive that outward life appears more real than our inner world. In reality, the opposite is true. The same consciousness that creates the universe is the consciousness that creates our minds. Owing to this fact, the mind's ability to use a universal consciousness mind is ultimately a factor that shapes the reality we live in. And much more than that, before our birth in the body, while we were only consciousness of the soul, we created all the living forms, all the conditions of life for the body. This whole planet, and in effect, the entire physical cosmos, this is all the power of consciousness of the divine absolute, whose individual expression is our soul and not the power of our individual mind, which uses the same consciousness, albeit in a very limited way, during its time in the physical body. To overcome illusions of the mind, one needs to understand the true nature of a consciousness that is the same in the physics of ether as well as in our mind. This understanding may be achieved if we understand the nature of time, mass, and space. Consciousness is the essence of the physics of ether, which we can experience in our mind only as a timeless presence in the present moment. Therefore, the disappearance of time and being present in the timeless present is the experience of presence in the consciousness of the physics of ether, quantum field. Hence, all the importance that is attributed to here and now, and being in the present moment experience. The mass or physical form of everything or phenomena originates through the momentary shaping of ether into such a form or phenomena. Since the physics of ether is timeless, everything that is formed in space is formed instantly. Therefore, there are no real objects and phenomena per se that move across space and time separately, but ether, as the quantum field or akasha, instantly shapes into everything that exists. In that way, nothing is different from ether or the quantum field, which is space itself. The foundation of everything is space. Ether is space. It is primary. Everything else is possible only within this space. Therefore, when we are referring to the quantum field or ether, we are not dealing with something ultra small, but something ultra big, infinite, and absolute. The mind twists the whole reality into a completely opposite state. Only when we transcend the mind do we see the unity of everything in a timeless present. Practically, it means that every physical shape and phenomenon we can see is a reflection of consciousness and conscious intent. A human unconsciousness is reflected through perceiving physical things and phenomena as dead matter, as something outside themselves, outward, causing them not to pay attention to it. They do not take it seriously and with respect. Hence their violent acts without respect, not towards things and nature only, but towards other people and themselves as well, since they are unaware of what is here and now. The human projects their highest respect outwardly onto God, into an abstract principle. The awakened people or saints saw God concretely, here and now in all things, in themselves as well as out of themselves. They always saw God face to face. It means they saw God in every material occurrence, always and everywhere. The material world, to them, is nothing but manifested God. They are always in Him, like fish in water, All they understood was that the mind is what projects everything as the opposite. The mind projects the image of the world, which to us looks like the world is outside of us. We do not see the reality of the world as the divine consciousness that is omnipresent and is our essence. We still or transcend our mind when we become aware of the essence or meaning. We constantly think only because we are searching for the essence and meaning in everything, hence our need to imagine and explain, to communicate outwardly with other people and inwardly with ourselves through an inner dialogue or opinion, as it were. Once we become aware of the truth, our mind stops. Those are the moments of awe and serenity when we stumble upon the irrefutable truth. We always stand speechless before reality. The essence of all phenomena and events is that all of them are instantly formed from space. It is the physics of ether. Once our mind is adequate for space, when it comprehends the physics of ether, enlightenment as such, stillness of the mind becomes the natural result, the transcendence of it. In a nutshell, we can get to this phase when we overcome the personal and subjective use of a consciousness that restricts us to the limitations of the mind, and learn about the objective nature of consciousness, of the physics of ether. Our mind stops then, because we begin to see one timeless whole, the unity and the meaning of it all. We envision only what is unfamiliar to us, so we may get to know it better. Once the true nature of existence is revealed, or the essence of everything we can think of, then we no longer have a reason for constant deliberation. How does consciousness that is based on the physics of ether work? Always in a healing manner. There is nothing one need do with such objective consciousness. It corrects everything that could be corrected by itself, removes all misconceptions, and brings positive energy. For example, if we are obsessed with fury and lower drives, only a moment of our time is required to go back to ourselves, and all the unfavorable states will vanish. A change in the rhythm of breathing or the practice of meditation will suffice. If only for a moment we return to the presence of here and now. When we are fully conscious of ourselves being here and now, we become independent of everything else, of our imagined states that project us into various delusional states and into space and time, always aspiring to attain something outwardly. The only cure for all the suffering and conflict is the return to oneself here and now. Such awareness releases us from all illusion and confrontation and plight, whether inside or outside of us. All the negative states of consciousness cannot exist in any other way but through the oblivion of oneself, by losing the presence of the awareness of here and now. The loss of such presence is suffering. The difference between the physics of ether and our mind creates a gap between the unmanifested state of the quantum field and the manifested world of objects. The mind turns the physics of ether into the world of objects. In this highest or most subtle state, the ether nature has properties of spaceless and timeless holographic unity. It is the quantum field that presents the pure source and potential of all possibilities. The nature of its electromagnetic frequencies is scalar and stationary, non-Hertzian, because the unity of all opposites rules in this vastness of space. Information is transferred through the scalar field instantly throughout the entire cosmos. Therefore, the scalar field is the foundation of overall life. It is the source of all life, the source of energy, or prana. Nowadays, it is being discovered in experimental physics, and due to the prohibition of the term ether, various names are given to it, such as vacuum or 0 point, energy, dark matter, quantum field, matrix. Technically speaking, the unmanifested or elementary nature, such as ether or akasha, is based on the stationary or non-Hertzian waves, which are faster than light, and the manifested nature we can observe as a multitude of objects and phenomena is based on the vector Hertzian waves, which are slower than light. Subsection 20. Nikola Tesla, more than a century ago, discovered and used in his experiments a new kind of electromagnetic wave that is called non-Hertzian or stationary. He did so to distinguish their dissimilarity from the classical so-called Hertzian electromagnetic waves. During one storm, he saw a phenomenon of ball lightning. He then realized that electric energy does not only move in a vector fashion, but also spherically and stationarily. It becomes a ball. He soon concluded that if everything is energy, this non-Hertzian motion is more fundamental than wave vector and Hertzian. And this explains why all the celestial bodies are spherical, and that the identical property also has the physics of ether. The problem he encountered was denial by mainstream science as regards any kind of electromagnetic wave other than those H.R. Hertz proved in 1888. The whole of nature is energy, and energy as such is expressed through electromagnetic waves of a different spectrum. The nature of radiation was determined by J.C. Maxwell in his complex equations that encompassed both Hertzian and non-Hertzian waves. The manifested and unmanifested nature, i.e., ether. However, the rules of the time did not permit the truth of all of this to be brought to the public, and they used mathematicians Oliver Heaviside and Hendrik Lorentz to alter the original Maxwell equations immediately after his death, which describe the nature of all electromagnetic phenomena by omitting their scalar part, longitudinal electrodynamic waves, and leaving wave vectors only. Allegedly, engineers found them easier to work with. These shortened, falsified, and crippled Maxwell equations have been taught in universities all around the globe to this day. This is how people have been prevented from receiving true information on the nature of electromagnetic phenomena and physical reality as such. Ether as the source of abundant free energy was concealed, and people were enslaved by the energy and financial system. In fact, the role of ether or akasha has been hidden from plain view, a unique non-Hertzian field that timelessly connects all phenomena, which is the source of all energy. Nowadays, the big topic is the vacuum energy, zero-point energy, or dark matter, because scientists have been prohibited from using the term ether. The importance of ether or akasha was discovered by Nikola Tesla, who based his most important invention on it. However, they have still not surfaced in the light of day and are not being implemented as of yet. The nature of non-Hertzian electromagnetic waves is stationary, volumetric, resembling a sphere that is breathing and vibrating. In that respect, it is different from the transversal vector form of the classical electromagnetic waves, which are all slower than the speed of light. On this spherical non-Hertzian principle, all celestial bodies, stars, and planets are based, and all of them, the planets and stars, grow and expand. All the torsion movement of energy in nature, from individual living beings to galaxies, is based on that principle. This entire cosmos is electromagnetic phenomenon in its foundation. Stars are sparks that came into being as a consequence of the electrostatic discharge in large proportions. They get their energy from space, but gravity itself is also an electrostatic phenomenon of larger proportions. Stars are not thermonuclear furnaces by definition, nor is gravity based on mass. The borderline between Hertzian and non-Hertzian vibrations of the divine particle is the speed of light. This is the borderline between the unmanifested and the manifested states of the quantum field. All Hertzian motions takes place below the speed of light and is therefore visible to our senses. It is the three-dimensional world spreading out in time and space. All non-Hertzian motion is above the speed of light and is inaccessible to the physical senses, but the manifestations of it are accessible to the inner senses, its timeless presence of all possibilities, and its momentary transfer of information more than anything else. We can become aware of it by developing our inner senses through meditation and astral projection. We use inner senses when we are out of our body in higher dimensions. The more we realize the timeless and omnipresent non-Hertzian consciousness within the space-time Hertzian phenomena, i.e. consciousness from the higher dimensions that we actualize in the physical world, connecting inner senses with those of the physical realm, the more we are able to function altering reality and surpassing the limitations of space and time within the Hertzian motions. Every form of creative change is in our reality our attempt to act from non-Hertzian consciousness on Hertzian reality. Non-Hertzian reality is primary. It is the reality of the divine absolute itself and its divine particle. What does consciousness of the quantum field look like in practice as the stationary consciousness? According to the very term stationary, time stops and disappears in this experience. Everything becomes one timeless present, and space disappears together with it in the sense that motion disappears. We no longer move through space, but experience space through ourselves. We become limitless, and within ourselves we are always motionless, while overall existence rotates around us. Our thoughts also move, and we are there still witnesses. Feelings move, and we are there still witnesses. Our bodies moves, and we are its still witnesses. The whole world moves and happens around us, who are the still transcendental witnesses. In this way, we are always the center of all phenomena, like the center of a sphere. Our transcendental focus rests on the perfection of all phenomena. It is perfect like the sphere. Every aspect of existence is equally far set apart from our center. The model of a sphere is simply an alternative way to say that existence is like a hologram. Stationary or non-Hertzian frequency is a possibility because the cosmos is a hologram. Although we are involved in action, our consciousness is stationary. Movement and stillness are the same thing. Action is inaction. It is possible only due to the comprehensiveness of the stationary quantum mind. It entails all possibilities, hence it is always correct. The mind moves only when it is without such comprehensiveness, and it has the illusion that it must obtain something outside of itself. Once it loses its completedness, it tries to do something. The outer world disappears because we come to know it as our own being. The whole of nature is our being and not only the physical body. All of this we should not conquer and achieve as a result of some effort or mystical experience. It is a reality that is always there. Some other reality does not exist. Our mind is the only thing that is outside of reality and detaches us from illusions. All it takes is for us to awaken from the illusions of our mind, harmonize with reality, and not fight the illusion. Our task is not to fight the illusion, nor can we do so because the illusion does not exist. We strengthen the illusion by maintaining and believing in it when we grow attached to it. Also when we try to fight it, when we find it repulsive. The transcendence of both extremes is necessary for the cognition of the true nature of consciousness. That is the foundation of everything, of both the subject and the object. It is the only practice. It is called meditation or yoga, and it was defined scientifically by Patanjali. No object is something in itself or by itself. That is why in Buddhism there is the teaching of emptiness, sunyata. This notion has been misunderstood to a large degree, and Buddhists stick to the notion of emptiness in the wrong way. It simply means that no object we observe is outward, independent of us, or detached from consciousness, which perceives it simply because the object is the same consciousness with which it is observed. Our individuality is the same consciousness. Therefore, in Buddhism, together with emptiness, one learns of the non-existence of individuality itself, anatta, as a separate and real in itself and by itself. The same applies to the subject who perceives the object as what can be applied to the objects themselves. Everything is consciousness that manifests itself in all possible ways, both subtle and gross, outwardly and inwardly. Because the consciousness observer, subject, and object, 4 dimensions exist that make all the difference. They divide the one same consciousness into gross outer objects, the element of earth, and the conscious individual who cognizes objects, the element of air. There are no special separate objects in the absolute consciousness that would be real by themselves as separate objects. It is all only the absolute consciousness, both the subject that perceives and the consciousness of perception, as well as the object of perception. It was explained by Nagarjuna in his work Mula Madhyamaka Karika. Buddha never spoke about it in such a way. He only stressed that subjects are empty and that emptiness, sanyata, is the highest reality. He did so for educational purposes, to make sure his disciples did not forget and obstruct themselves in understanding this truth. But he instead encouraged them to know the truth directly themselves and to realize that their consciousness is the same as the gross world they see outside. If the whole truth had been told, they would also have projected it as an idea. The mind projects everything as an idea and then hangs on to it as though it were real, even when there is an obvious discrepancy with reality. Even the ultimate truth the mind is able to separate from itself and projects outside. The mind is ego. It never surrenders on its own. It exists based on creating virtual reality out of everything. It is useful for us to understand reality. We learn quicker like that. The problem that arises is that the mind has no boundaries. It creates a virtual reality out of everything, and an ideology with which it will perpetuate its existence. Even information that existence is pure consciousness, like itself, that everything is empty, that nothing is outside the mind, that nothing is substantial, and there are no objects that are real in themselves and by themselves. When we become aware of such true nature in its original state, ether with all the stationary, non-Hertzian properties, our state of consciousness will correspond to such a state. Consciousness that is becoming aware of reality cannot differ from reality itself in any way. Consciousness of self-knowledge, the highest wakefulness or enlightenment, Muhat Buddhi, has the same characteristics of stationarity and timelessness, completedness in itself, like a sphere, like akasha. It could be said that supreme consciousness or wakefulness is as non-Hertzian as the quantum field. Human lower consciousness, limited by the mind and ego and identified with the physical body, has Hertzian properties that correlate with three-dimensionality. When the human in meditation attains pure transcendental consciousness, they are then on the same level with the universal quantum field of all possibilities, with ether or akasha, and their creative potential becomes unlimited. The old mental patterns that restricted them disappear, and all the new ones become an option. The manifestation of powers, siddhi, is the influence of consciousness directly from the ether onto the physical plane. Supernatural powers are the physics of ether. Humans can do this through themselves because they are the microcosm. If the entire cosmos were not contracted in them, they would not be able to do so. Their self would not be a mirror of the universal quantum field that overall existence originates from. Nor would their consciousness be able to impact the quantum field. They can do so because consciousness of the quantum field is consciousness of their self, of their soul. To the degree the human is complete in their essence, in their soul, to that degree they can positively and creatively influence nature and events. And that brings us to an end of this part 6 of the Physics of Consciousness by Ivan Antic, a presentation brought to you by Transcending Ascension. This is an unauthorized audiobook, but I do have a Kindle subscription and it's included in it, so I've given myself license to read it to you for no profit here on YouTube and on every single podcasting platform, as I feel this book is vital for humanity. This book should be the new Bible. If we need a Bible, it's this one. He wrote lots of books, but this one, this first one he put number first in his series, is the one. It's the one that explains the absolute science of how consciousness even exists, of how reality exists. Do you hear that? That chapter I just read, well, that was 2 chapters, but that last chapter there is it. We are not real. We do not move. This is why meditation works. If we sit there and meditate, we are being still and finally locking in with ourself. We have the Hertzian and the non-Hertzian self. The Hertzian is the physical self, the science self that the only thing allowed being discovered. Where the non-Hertzian is the transcendental ghost etheric self, the Akashic self. This is why Akashic records and the ether and the quantum field are all the same. When people want to talk about the Akashic records and accessing them, that they are like a limited dimension, is not true. The Akashic records are everything. They are existence. And they are the stillness of your existence. So when you sit in meditation in the stillness that is your existence, this is why you access information from the quantum field, because the quantum Akashic records is all the same thing. Your stillness, your being, you are the universe. So when you sit there and try to access the God particle that is you, that you go in and out of in like a ton of times a second, like 10 times at least in 1 second, it is said that you go back and forth in and out of the God particle, meaning you are not real. You're not real. We already knew this. Vibration. In your vibrations that you existed, you are popping in and out of existence so fast you don't even realize it. So when you sit in meditation, you are sitting in the true self that doesn't even actually exist. This is why like atheists are so close to being right. And the Buddhists talk about nirvana and the void. That the void that you can go to, the void I have personally experienced as an atheist, and that I now can access as like a superpower that I get to cheat my way into in the Buddhist nirvana as the void, because I already experienced it as an atheist. When you seek that place of nothingness, when you try to find what it's like to not exist, because I go at everything with all passion that I believe in. So as much as I believed in the nothingness of atheism and how it had all scientific proof, there's a reason, and that's because the void space of nothingness is real. Now, does that mean I'm not here real talking to you right now? Kind of. And that kind of stuff can throw you into dark nights of the soul, because we don't exist, but we do exist. So don't worry. We go in and out of it every second more times than you can fathom. And that's what your vibration is and your frequency is. It's popping in and out of this, as well as other things. Vibrations and frequency orchestrate and create your entire existence, but they do that as they come in and out of this field. Because as they go in and out, they pull back your emotions and your vibrations. This is why they're so important. Because every time you check back in with the divine particle, you are checking back in with your given thoughts, your given emotions, and your given words that you were literally speaking as you were popping in and out of existence. As I am talking to you right now, in one word that I speak, I pop in and out of existence millions of times, and you too pop in and out of existence as you are listening to me, and you are reconstructing your existence based on what you feel from how you hear me. So you hearing me, I am not making your reality, not me. I'm not real to you. I am not real. I am a non-player character to you, except I'm not, because one day you will be me and I will be you. But that's not relevant. To you right now, what I say to you does not affect you. This is why you don't get to blame anybody for what happens to you. You don't get to blame anybody for what happens to you, because your perception of how you are viewing my words to you is what makes your reality, as you yourself, the only God in existence, pops in and out of reality. You bring in and out of that reality what you are perceiving that I am saying. Okay? So what I say to you is only relevant based on how you perceive it. This is why people can teach lies and people can create their entire foundation of life off a lie, because your perception is everything. Nothing is actually real. Your perceptions and your mind are way more powerful than you could ever possibly comprehend, because we are not real. This is not real. Even your fifth dimensional self is not real. Even your eighth dimensional self is not real. Even your 12th dimensional self is not real. You are not real until there is no longer dimensions and you are the tiny, tiny God particle, which, like he said in the book, we see is probably smaller than a pea. But I bet you $1 million it's the size of your pineal gland. And that your pineal gland is only thing that's real. That little size of a rice gland that creates your DMT and your melatonin, and it also plays a part in your serotonin and all your endorphins. It's actively involved in that as it works together with your other magical brain machinery. Studying the human body is akin to studying the universe, and I work on it myself as much as possible. I read books on the body so that I can understand the anatomy of it, because if you understand the anatomy of your body and how it works, you understand how the universe works. As within, so without. That was not a joke. That was not a joke. Do you notice when he described in there the cosmos spiraling like the DNA, and how there's no location of the Big Bang, because there was no Big Bang. We are always the Big Bang. Do you get it? The Big Bang is always happening. We are always going in and out of that existence. We are always popping in, popping out, popping in, popping out. Now, does our overall universe have a story like our body, how our body dies? Yes, the universe probably dies just like our body, but there is something outside of it. And something outside of it. The outside would never stop. When you look at the toroidal field, you see that the top of the circle, because we're spherical, but in the toroidal field that is existence, you see the top just gets pulled back in. It just gets pulled back in. So there is no limit. It's all intercircling, in and out in a toroidal field, in and out, as the whole entire existence goes in and out of that divine particle. So go get this book and read it yourself. Get a Kindle subscription. It's actually free. It's part of the Kindle Unlimited, although Kindle's not free, but it's in Kindle Unlimited. All his books are. So read it and listen to me reading it, because I love an audiobook. I'm going through his book. I actually haven't read all his book. He's got 11 or 12 out there. I haven't even finished them all. I've finished lots, but because reading takes me longer with 3 children and housework and blah, blah, blah life, right? I would love to be a permanent content creator, but the time is not there and my children are my priority. But next is you and the universe. So I'm here after my children. And when they get older, I'll be able to be here more. But for now, this is what I can do, and I don't like to push it, because then I get sick, because God likes to keep me slow. And it's in my astrology that my impact into the world will be great, more when I'm dead, yay, but it will never stop increasing. I am always going to increase in my power to the world and my career will be spiritual. So here we are with my career, slowly growing here now, and the only thing I care about is bettering the world, because if you haven't noticed, we live in a hell realm, but I've watched it get better every day, thanks to people that are born awake, and we might have had a really traumatizing childhood, even if you were raised normal, which I wasn't, because you're so sensitive, because you're a star seed, and we're all star seeds, so that doesn't make you better than anybody else, and you chose to do this, so this whole chosen title can... Yeah, you chose yourself. We're all God. We're all going to go through this. I'm going to be you. You're going to be me. So it doesn't really matter at the same time, except that there's no point for me in existing without mattering. There's no point for me in existing to partake in the false matrix, because it's dying and it's not fun for me. I tried. It's not fun. And I bet it's not fun for you if you're still listening to me now. So keep sticking with it. I will try to finish this book for you. And one day I will put it all together and edit out these fun little inserts for me. But as of now, it goes on my YouTube and my podcast, so you can listen to me if you want, or shut me off. That is your prerogative to perceive me how you want. Lots of people see me as annoying, so I'm not offended, because I am, and I don't care. I'm done trying to please people. The facts of the matter and of the universe are not happy news, except that, like, when you really let it in, it's still not happy. But it's fine, and you're God, and you get to have lots of thousands of millions of years of being wicked, awesome gods. So these tiny lives right now in physical, terrible, excruciating existence, you just have to juice out what you can. And for me, that's my children. I love them so much. And I'm a spoiler, and that's my life, and I live for them, and I will always live for them forever into their adulthood. One of them I have to. And that's a blessing to God, from God, to God. I'm God. It's all great. Because my little man that I will probably, although I want him to wake up and be able to talk and stuff and live his own life for his own sake. However, he's a very happy man, so I'm fine with that. Autism. Everyone's going to probably have one soon, so it's okay. And my one daughter is slightly autistic, so, we're in this for life here with the children, and that is beautiful. And that is not something, it's funny because my children are the only thing I cared about, so God made sure I would have them forever. So it's beautiful. And you got to look for your own beauty in this world. Even if it looks like it's going to be a hard thing, it doesn't have to be. And then you can find things like this that I like to do when I have the time to do it. And it brings me purpose, it brings me meaning, it brings me joy, and here I am. So thank you for tuning in to Transcending Ascension. I hope to be bringing you more of this book very soon in the future. So good luck. I believe in you. You can do this. Meditate. Find your divine particle. There's only one, and we're all it. And this is where we join together in the oneness. So I'll see you there in our divine particle time any split second now.